Hey there and welcome. So let's talk about something that probably lands on a lot of your desks, corporate travel planning. I know, it can feel like trying to solve this giant, complicated puzzle. But I promise, with the right approach, you're going to go from feeling totally overwhelmed to being the go-to travel pro in the office. So let's dive right in.
Okay, picture this. Your boss walks over and says, I need you to book a business trip. And just like that, you're in the hot seat. You've got a city, you've got a date, but a million questions are probably already spinning in your head. Flights, hotels, budgets, where do you even begin? It's a classic high-pressure moment, and our goal today is to give you the tools to handle it like an absolute pro.
So here's how we're going to break this down. We've got 4 main sections. First, we'll cover the absolute essentials for any domestic trip. Then, we'll crank up the difficulty a bit and talk about going global. After that, we'll get into the really interesting stuff, the little details about local customs. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by making sure everything you plan actually follows your company's rules. By the end of this, you're going to have a complete playbook.
All right, let's jump into Section 1, the essentials. Look, every single business trip, I don't care if it's a quick flight to the next state or a cross-country journey, is built on the same foundation. Nailing these basics is, without a doubt, the key to a stress-free travel plan.
When you boil it all down, a domestic trip really only has 3 main pieces to the puzzle. You've got flights to get your person there and back, you've got accommodation so they have a place to stay, and you've got ground transportation for getting around once they land. That's it. Think of them as the 3 pillars of your plan. Your first job is just to get those locked in.
Okay, so you've got the domestic basics down. Now, let's level up. Planning an international trip, well, it uses all those same skills we just talked about, but it adds a few extra layers of complexity, and these are layers you absolutely positively cannot ignore.
And this slide really shows you what I mean. See on the left, that's your domestic trip. Flights, hotels, ground transport. Simple. But now look over at the right. For an international trip, you start with that same foundation, but then you have to stack on these other crucial pieces. Your job suddenly goes from just being a booker to being a researcher and a preparer.
And what are those extra layers? Well, we're talking about things like passports and visas. You have to check, is their passport valid for at least 6 months after the trip? Does this country even require a visa to enter? Then you've got to think about currency. And you should always check government travel advisories for any safety warnings. These might seem like small details, but trust me, they're the difference between a smooth trip and a complete logistical nightmare.
Okay, so once all the logistics are handled, we've got to shift our focus to the human side of things. See, a successful international trip isn't just about the plane landing on time. It's about being effective and, maybe more importantly, being respectful once you're there. And that all comes down to understanding the local business culture. Here's a great example. Japan. Here we might just casually flick a business card across the table, but in Japan, it's a whole different ballgame. It's a formal moment. You present your card with both hands, and when you receive one, you take a second to actually look at it and acknowledge it. It's a tiny gesture, but it's a huge sign of respect that makes a massive first impression.
Or how about this one? Germany. For many of us, on time means right on the dot. But in German business culture, being on time often means being 5 or 10 minutes early. If you walk in right at the scheduled start time, you could actually be seen as late. That one little detail can set the entire tone for a meeting before you've even shaken hands.
And that's exactly why doing a quick 5-minute search on local business etiquette is an absolute must before any international trip. Seriously, are you supposed to shake hands? Is gift-giving a thing? Doing that little bit of homework shows you care, it shows respect, and it will pay off big time when it comes to building trust. All right, for our final section, we're bringing it all back home. You can plan the most perfect trip ever, logistics are flawless, you've mastered the cultural nuances, but it all means nothing if it doesn't pass the final test, your own company's travel policy. This is the step that matters for getting approvals and making sure everyone gets reimbursed.
So what is a corporate travel policy? Just think of it as the official rulebook for any travel your company does. It'll tell you things like which airlines you should use, how much you can spend per night on a hotel, and what website or tool you have to use to book everything. The whole point is just to keep spending fair and predictable for everyone.
The actual process is usually pretty straightforward. It almost always looks like this. Step 1, get the trip approved before you book anything. Step 2, do all your booking, but make sure you're following those policy rules. Step 3, and this one is so important, keep every single receipt. And then step 4, submit that expense report to get the money back. Once you know these 4 steps, it's really not that complicated. And really, this is what it's all about. When you handle all of this stuff, the logistics, the cultural details, the company rules, you're doing so much more than just booking a trip. You're getting rid of all the stress and friction. You're creating a situation where your traveler can focus 100% on why they're there in the first place, to do business. That's not just planning, that's creating a real business advantage.
So I'll leave you with this one last thought for the next trip that lands on your desk. Ask yourself, what's the one extra detail I can take care of right now that will make this whole trip totally seamless? Maybe it's pre-booking that airport transfer, or maybe it's double-checking the visa requirements one last time. It's usually that one extra little thing that turns a good trip into a truly great one. Thanks for tuning in.